I'm a big rooter for CNN, but that tells you a lot, doesn't it? I mean, how do you guys think you are doing in that arena of like, this is a terribly divided country. We're not only politicized, a lot of people just hate the other side. And CNN, in my view, should be the place where both sides can watch. How do you think you're doing with that?
CNN is the place where both sides can watch. And I think, my show is evidence of that. We have lawmakers on from both parties. We'll have Elizabeth Warren on one night. We'll have Ted Cruz on another night. I think lawmakers from both parties should take questions, and you should push both.
Bill Maher has done it again. CNN's Kaitlan Collins, who often presents herself as the voice of reason, stepped into the spotlight, and it did not go well for her. Maher didn't just push back on her political bias and woke stance. He systematically tore apart her arguments, leaving her struggling to respond. It was sharp, entertaining, and honestly, overdue. If you thought Maher was done calling out media hypocrisy, think again. This was a masterclass. And it all started with this short clip right here.
On the freeze in federal funding, who advised the president on the legality of telling government agencies that they don't have to spend money that was already appropriated by Congress?
Well, as the OMB memo states, this is certainly within the confines of the law. So White House counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to do it.
Bill Maher has had enough of the left's outrage over Kaitlan Leavitt. Since she took over as White House press secretary, the attacks have been relentless. From the View's laughing panel to media figures like Jim Acosta and Kaitlan Collins, the strategy has been clear: hit her with loaded questions and hope she stumbles. A perfect example? The exchange in the video above. Collins pressed her. Decision to remove a few prosecutors, something completely within his authority. She knew it, the audience knew it, but she asked anyway, hoping to trip Kaitlan up. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. Kaitlan fired back with a sharp, straightforward response. But Collins wasn't ready to back down. She doubled down, trying to force the issue. And that's when it all fell apart. It's no surprise Bill Maher was fired up. He couldn't ignore the hypocrisy any longer. So, he went all in, calling out the left like a wrecking ball on a mission. But before we get to that, let's talk about Kaitlan Collins and her usual routine. As expected, she came in swinging, rapid-fire questions, loaded statements, and that signature gotcha tone. The goal? Confuse, corner, and conquer. Classic move. But Kaitlan Leavitt wasn't having it. She saw it coming away and shut it down with ease. Collins' entire argument boiled down to one thing: Trump exercised his presidential authority legally and lawfully. That's it. End of story. But here's where it gets funny. Collins just wouldn't stop. She kept rambling about norms, ethics, and the big picture, as if feelings mattered more than legal facts. Meanwhile, Leavitt stayed cool and composed, delivering a masterclass in dismantling woke narratives using nothing but reality.
Confident that if they bring lawsuits against you, the prosecutors who were fired, that they will succeed.
We will win in court,
and
yes.
Did he personally direct this, given they worked on the classified documents investigation and the election interference investigation?
This was a memo that went out by the Presidential Personnel Office, and the president is the leader of this White House, so yes.
Kaitlan Leavitt's poise and sharp thinking were nothing short of impressive. While Collins fired off question after question, each one more twisted than the last, Leavitt never flinched. She didn't take the bait, didn't get lost in the word games. Instead, she cut straight to the point, slicing through the noise and focusing on the real issue. No matter how Collins tried to spin it, whether through moral posturing, legal acrobatics, or feigned concern, Levitt stayed steady. She kept repeating the same undeniable truth in different ways. Trump had every legal right to fire the prosecutors. Plain and simple. But here's where it got interesting. Levitt didn't just answer the questions, she exposed the game. Collins wasn't looking for clarity. She was fishing for a soundbite, and Levitt, sharp as ever, made sure soundbite worth airing was the truth. It was a masterclass in handling media bias with grace, wit, and unshakable confidence. Meanwhile, Bill Maher had seen enough. He believed the young White House press secretary was being unfairly targeted, and he wasn't about to let it slide. So, he stepped in, first by giving Kaitlan Collins a taste of her own medicine, setting a trap she never saw coming.
I'm a big rooter for CNN, but that tells you a lot, doesn't it? I mean, how do you guys think you are doing in that arena of like, this is a terribly divided country. We're not only politicized, a lot of people just hate the other side. And CNN, in my view, should be the place where both sides can watch. How do you think you're doing?
CNN likes to present itself as a neutral, fact-driven news outlet with no agenda. But the moment you scratch the surface, that illusion crumbles. The truth? The network leans left, not just slightly, but deeply. You see it in the stories they push, the guests they invite, and, most obviously, the way they frame their questions. They don't just report the news, they shape it to fit a narrative. Bill Maher knows this, which is why he let Kaitlan Collins walk right into the very trap she had set for Karoline Leavitt. And sure enough, she fell for it. Collins started with her usual PR spin, proudly insisting that CNN is a fair and balanced platform where voices from all political backgrounds are welcome. But here's the problem. Throwing in a handful of high-profile conservatives doesn't change the network's overall slant. That's like tossing one green grape into a bowl of red ones and calling it a fruit salad. Yes, conservatives may get a few minutes on CNN, but it's usually under a barrage of loaded questions, dismissive comments, and a post-interview panel eager to fact-check anything that challenges the network's preferred storyline. Collins' defense wasn't just weak, it was downright laughable. If CNN were truly fair, she wouldn't have to name-drop conservatives like rare collectibles. And just like that, Maher had her cornered, exposing the reality she had hoped to avoid.
Conservative in America, and I'm watching CNN, just for the straight middle of the road. That's what I hear for 15 minutes, is it's great, and then Lonely Scott. It does look, I mean, and when you see the path, it does look like tokenism. It's kind of like the same as The View. It's like it's almost better to have nobody there, like MSNBC, than to have this.
Bill Maher was spot on. Token conservative appearances don't prove neutrality, they prove the opposite. And he didn't just point it out, he tore the argument to shreds. According to Maher, occasionally parading a conservative face isn't a sign of fairness. It's actually worse than outright bias. At least when a panel is entirely left-leaning, viewers know what they're getting. But disguising an agenda under the mask of neutrality, that's deception, plain and simple. And Maher didn't hold back. He called out CNN for caring more about optics than actual balance. They don't strive for real fairness. They just want to look fair. He also highlighted how conservatives who do get airtime are treated, not as guests, but as villains in a pre-planned narrative. They're interrupted, misquoted, and fact-checked in real time, ensuring their viewpoints never get a fair hearing. Maher made one thing clear. CNN's fake neutrality isn't just dishonest, it's dangerous. If they're going to lean left, they should own it. But misleading people into thinking they're getting both sides, that only fuels division. With Maher stepping in, you'd think Kaitlan Collins and her crew might ease up on their attacks on Karoline Leavitt, but instead, they doubled down, getting even more aggressive. And right here, you can see one of them trying, once again, to corner Leavitt.